Hello and welcome back to Crafted by Corie. If you're new, I'm Corie. Welcome to my channel. And if you are returning, thank you as always for all of the support. I truly appreciate you. Today is the I Love Plaid playlist. More about that in a little bit, but for now, let's go ahead and get right on into the crafting. DIY number one. I have a foam cone, a little Dollar Tree bucket. I have some moss, paint, chalk paints, and those little foam eggs. I have 36 eggs, and I'm going to divide them up into 4 different groups of 9 each. Did I do my math right? 9 each, yes. I'm going to do 9 of them in the light pink. That is a vintage Victorian that I had lightened with white chalk paint a while back. I did celery, which was also lightened. And then this is pool. And then the yellow was sunny porch. Whew. And now I am just cutting a piece of foam core, tucking that down inside my little bucket. And I'm going to move on to my styrofoam cone using a bunch of hot glue and then my moss. If I had to do it again, I probably would not start with the moss. I would start with the eggs and then just put the moss in between in a way that I will be doing a little bit more later. But for whatever reason, I thought I probably should cover this with moss first. It's definitely a messy project, but using some hot glue on top of my little floral foam there to cover that with moss. And now I have these wires that I'd pulled out of some flower stems during another project, and I just kept them just in case. For the life of me, could not find my wooden skewers. I think I must be out of them. I thought I had them. Couldn't use skewers, so this was my plan B. I'm just cutting it at an angle so it's got a sharp edge on either side of it. And as you saw, I stuck one end into the egg and then the other end I stuck into the styrofoam through the moss. And I'm just gonna do that all over this little tree that I've kind of fashioned, so to speak. Now, when I started, I was putting them way close together, and then as I was working my way down, I realized I was going to run out of eggs if I kept putting them so close together. So I began spreading them out a little bit more, and I did see how they're all clustered together at the top there. I did spread them out a little bit here and there, but they got a little bit looser towards the bottom. But at any rate, I went ahead at the end and tucked in some of this moss. So you see me just applying hot glue in between the eggs where there are kind of holes, if you will, and I'm just filling that in with the moss, and it worked out really well. I think this project is super cute. I hope that you're enjoying it as much as I am. I love it. So once I had my little tree all done, I fashioned some longer wires, and I'm going to stick them into the bottom here, and then I'm going to I've got 3 of them, and I'm going to use that to secure it into the floral foam in my little bucket. So just very carefully pressing that down in, making sure it's all nice and straight and secure, and that's it. You'll have to let me know what you think of this project. Now, as I mentioned, this is part of the I Love Plaid playlist. It is hosted by Indie Annie Jones, my sweet friend. All of the rules are here. These fantastic crafters you see are all part of the playlist. You have until March 31st at 5 p.m. to enter. Be on the listen for my secret word. DIY number 2. All right, my sweet subscriber Rose sent these to me. I'm having trouble talking this evening as I record this, you guys, so bear with me. But they are these wonderful little wooden cutouts, and obviously you piece them together to create eggs. And I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with them, so ultimately I decided I was just going to stain them. I figured, you know what, simple little project that could have quite a big impact. This is probably a little bit boho. But I think it's just really classy. So with the stain, and then I'm going to be distressing it with white in just a moment. But I'm using a baby wipe just to apply my Antique Wax by Waverly. One of my subscribers recently asked me why the baby wipes, and it just helps the wax to glide on easily and not with a really heavy deposit. So you have a little bit more control over the color of the wax, the depth of the color. But then, as I mentioned, I came back in with some of my Adirondack white chalk paint and I distressed it just with a really dry brush, just sweeping over all of those surfaces. And then I pulled out my little narrow ribbon. I think this is 1/8 of an inch, if I'm not mistaken. But I am just wrapping it around my fingers about 6 times. And I'm sorry, I'm a little out of frame there. And then I tied it off in the middle with another little piece. Just tied a simple knot around the center of it to cinch it together. And then I went ahead and I fluffed up all of my little loops to create just a sweet little bow. Nothing too fancy, it's just a little finger bow. And then I'm going to go ahead and apply it to the top of my egg. So a little bit of hot glue right on the top and making sure that my egg is, equally spaced around all 4 corners. And then I did the same thing with the smaller one. And then just trimmed off the little ends there and I was all done. DIY number 3. All right, I have a Dollar Tree calendar. I'm going to select the April image and just pull that out. I thought this little bunny was so cute. And then I have a wood round. That's been in my stash for quite some time. I think I might have picked it up at Michael's. I'm not 100% sure. My guess is that it was under $10, but again, I'm not exactly sure. But I traced out the shape and then I was looking at it and decided after I cut it that I didn't really want the cut edge. So I pulled out my little water brushes from the Dollar Tree. I guess that's what you call it. You fill it with water and it's like yeah, it's a water brush. Okay, so I went ahead and I used that around the edges of my calendar page just so that I could rip this off and make the edges a little bit ragged. Once I had that all set, I'm going to apply it to my wooden circle. I thought about using Mod Podge, and this is I Love Plaid, but I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to bubble, and I didn't have a water bottle with me to spray it. I've had people tell me if you spray it first, you won't get the bubbles. So I just used my spray adhesive and it worked like a dream. And then I used my Plaid little roller squeegee to make sure that it was nice and adhered. So now I'm back here with my Waverly wax. And if you're not familiar with Waverly, or if you are familiar with Waverly, but you're not familiar with the fact that it's a Plaid product, surprise, all of the Waverly chalk paints, those are all Plaid products. All of the home decor chalk paints are also Plaid products. Oh my goodness, get the words out, Corie. But as you can see, I'm just kind of going over even onto the little image itself to blend that wax in. And now I have selected some greenery. I'm going to be using boxwood for this. And true to form, if you've followed me at all for a little while, you know I like to cut apart all my picks. So I'm just using one single pick for this. And this is something I got on Amazon. The link to my Amazon store is in my description box if that's something you're interested in checking out, because you'll be able to find a lot of the supplies that I use in my Amazon store. But I gathered up the little bunches on either side, and I'm just using some leftover wire that I'd pulled off of a thing of chicken wire, if you can believe it. And I held on to the wire that was holding it together. So I'm just using that, and then my staple gun to adhere it to the wood round. This wood round is pretty solid. I would say it's probably almost 1/2 inch thick, if not a full 1/2 inch thick. And now I've got my burlap ribbon. I'm going to be creating a bow. I am just rolling it up on itself for this particular bow. And if you are interested in a bow tutorial, I do have one out on my channel, and I will make sure that I put a link in the description box to that tutorial, because I'm not going to be going into great detail on how I create the bows. I'm just going to kind of run right through it here. But I rolled it all up on itself. I'm going to go ahead and clip the at the center, just a notch on either side. You don't want to cut too far in. Using another piece of that extra wire, that leftover wire, whatever you want to call it. I'm using that in the middle. So sometimes I use chenille stems. Today I'm just using a little piece of wire because I had it handy and it worked for me. Then I'm going to pull apart all of my little bow loops, and it'll be ready to wrap its little tails. Yes, we're going to create tails. So tying that around the middle. Probably should have done that before I fluffed it, because I'm just going to end up having to fluff it again. But I knotted that off and then made sure my tails were facing the way that I wanted them. Fluffed up my little bow again. Dovetailed my ends, just folding it in half and clipping it off at an angle. And then I'm ready to go ahead and adhere this. I put down a generous amount of hot glue, and then I'll go ahead and set down my little bow right there. And then for the hanger, I'm going to cut off another piece of the burlap. I'm just going to create a little bit of a loop there, and trying not to crush my bow. I was thinking I probably should have done this before I put the bow on at the bottom, but you know, so trimming off the ends because I like everything to be nice and neat, even if you're looking at the back. And then I'm going to use my staple gun again to adhere this, because hot glue doesn't really stick real well to wood long term. So therefore the staple gun. But let me know what you think. And now it's time for a shout out timeout. Awesome, Lucy. These are so sweet. And Lucy is starting her own YouTube channel, so be on the lookout for her. And so sweet, Robin. I love these. They're so pretty. I would love to give you a shout out as well. If you have interest, send me an email at craftedbycorie@gmail.com. DIY number 4. All right, I have a bunch of these little letters from my sweet subscriber Rose, as well as a blingy butterfly, a Dollar Tree egg sign, and my plaid stencil. I'm going to be using the back of this sign. I'm giving it a coat of Sunny Porch by Home Decor, and I'm going to give it 2 coats. So once I've got it completely coated, I made sure that it was dry, and then I came in with a second coat. I tend to go in the opposite direction for coverage. Now I've picked out a bunch of different colors. These are also plaid paints. I believe they're called folk art. Some of them are folk art, some of them have different little names on them, but they're all plaid. So I am coming in and coating each of these. I love this little light purple shade. It reminds me of periwinkle, which is actually the Pantone color of the year. Fun fact. But I'm doing each of these letters a different spring color, and then I'll go ahead and set them aside to dry until I'm ready for them. Pulling out my stencil, I'm going to go ahead and lay this down in the middle of the egg. I got it all lined up, and I'm going to be using Pool with my plaid stencil brush. Now, y'all, I need somebody to tell me what I'm doing wrong here, because I thought I would get paint on the stencil brush and just be able to dab it, and the paint just wasn't coming off onto my project. So eventually I started kind of sweeping it more like a regular paintbrush as opposed to dabbing it. I don't know what I was doing wrong. So if you are a big stenciler, and this is my first time using a stencil brush, so let me know what the trick is. I made it work, but I'm sure I wasn't doing it right. So once that first section was completely dry, I went ahead and lined up my stencil again. and I am taking the pattern out to both edges. So I did the right side and then the left, and so I have a complete pattern here. I thought about doing the top and then decided I would rather write some words up there. So I was air drawing, if you will, because I am very visual. You may have heard me say in the past, and I have to kind of picture where my letters are going to go before I commit to putting them down. You could certainly use a pencil first. I just and sometimes I do use a pencil first, but I just decided I was going to go for it. If you are interested in a hand lettering tutorial, a very basic for beginners hand lettering tutorial where I show you exactly how I do this, I will also link that in my description box because I have a tutorial for that as well. But I'm just creating a faux calligraphy look by using my downstrokes to thicken up those letters, and that's really all there is to it. So now I'm taking my dry spring letters and I'm placing them on the egg. I had them there and decided I was going to move them up a little bit higher. So that's what I did. And then I just used a little bit of hot glue to secure each of the letters down. And I found that a little bit went a long way with this. And I know I mentioned earlier that hot glue doesn't work real well on wood, but it does seem to work real well on chalk paint. So I had that going for me. But I am now going to be using these other little pieces of greenery. I think these are considered eucalyptus. I got them off of Amazon as well, so they are also in my Amazon store. I had just trimmed off the little pick ends and then secured them with hot glue, as you saw. And now with this sweet purple ribbon, I am creating another bow. So if you want to learn how to do this bow, this is a different kind that I also did in the bow tutorial. So you are welcome to go and check that out after you finish watching here. And the playlist, don't forget about the playlist. So I fluffed up all of my little bow loops, put down a good amount of hot glue, and then I adhered it to the base of my egg. So now I've got this blingy little butterfly, and I knew it was going to be sweet somewhere on here. Again, I'm very visual, so I'm placing it around all over, trying to figure out where it should live. It does have a little clip on it, so I'm just trying to figure out if I'm going to be able to use the clip or if I'm going to have to take the clip off and just hot glue it. But I figured, you know what, let me try and create a hanger first. So I cut off another little length of ribbon, and then I decided I needed that hole to be a little bit wider, but my drill was upstairs in one of the closets because Rich and I have been working on our closets with a new closet system, and so I just used the drill bit because I didn't feel like going to get the drill, but it worked out just fine. I tucked my ribbon through, and then I brought the ends around behind to tie behind the loop. Hopefully that makes sense. But then I'm just going to adhere those down, and I did not show it, but I always like to finish off my projects with some craft paper on the back, just so that the project is completely finished. But you can see how I had done that little loop, and then I hooked on my little butterfly. So sweet. Let me know what you think. Okay, everybody, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the project. So please remember to give me a big thumbs up and leave me a comment. Remember to use the special word that I told you about so you get entered into the giveaway. And then be sure to check out the link in my description box for the playlist. You're gonna wanna go and check out all the other videos. So much inspiration out there. Please let them know I sent you. And until the next time, be well, be kind, and make it a great day. Thank you so much for watching. Take good care. Bye.